Ride review between a 2024 300 XCW and XC. What's the difference between these two 300 KTMs? I'll give you my impression on what I like and dislike about each, show you some side-by-side riding footage, as well as go through the on-paper differences between the two. First off, the XCW has softer suspension and is considered a trail-oriented bike. The XC has stiffer suspension and is considered an off-road competition bike. The W has a PDS shock, which sits a bit higher in the rear, and the XC has a linkage shock that sits lower. The linkage is better for big hits and the PDS for smaller chop. The PDS has better ground clearance too. The W has a claimed horsepower of 47 and the XC has 57. Most of the difference can lie in the head and some mapping differences. The W is oil injected. The system works great and you don't need to mix gas. It does add some complexity and weight, whereas the XC is just pre-mixed, so you can just keep on mixing. The W has a trip computer that can tell you your speed, trip functionality, as well as a few other things. The XC doesn't have that. It just has an hour meter, but the hour meter does give you codes, air codes, and gas light. The W has a larger 110 watt stator, which can run headlights, fans, and other accessories no problem, whereas the XC has a smaller 35 watt stator, so if you want to run headlights and a fan at the same time, it can be an issue. The W has a heavier flywheel, 12.48 ounces heavier than the XC to be exact, which allows a smoother power delivery, but less snappiness, which the XC has. The W is geared stock at 1345 and 1449 on the XC, but in the end, the ratios are nearly identical. The W does not come with a map switch, and the XC does, which actually does something this one. The XCW has a longer silencer, and the XC has a shorter one. I'm not sure if that's for noise. Some people say a longer silencer gives you more bottom end. I haven't noticed that. The W will control your aftermarket fan automatically, whereas the XC will not. You got to wire it directly to the battery. The W has higher foot pegs, and the XC has lower foot pegs. The W is 245 pounds, full of fluid and gas, and the XC is 242, and I challenge anybody to notice that difference. So what bike do I prefer personally? Well, for me, the W has better suspension for what I ride, and the XC has better power. But the exact bike that I want really doesn't exist. Basically, what I want is an amalgamation of both, or either, by throwing a bit of cash at either model. For the XC, I'd add a heavier flywheel and a larger stator. That gives me smoother power, but allows me to have the higher horsepower, and allows me to run a fan and lights if needed. With the W, I'd delete the oil injection, which is a simple $30 solution. That can also solve slight hesitation at about 1/8 of a throttle. And adding a TSB or similar head with a remap can bring that horsepower back up to XC standards. And speaking of suspension, I'd say they're both great, but I do find the XCW handles trail junk, slower chop better than the XC, which is expected as it's sprung softer. I do notice the W falls apart a bit at higher speed, and the XC is a little tougher at slower speed. So just revalve to match your exact conditions, I guess. All that being said, I think I could get used to either bike in complete stock form and be more than happy. I'd say it's a great time to buy a two-stroke, and it's hard to go wrong. Between these options, as well as the slight variations that Husky and Gas offer, we're getting pretty close with all of them. So what does that mean? It means it's hard to make a bad decision for any of these bikes. Really just pick the type of terrain you want to ride and go after it. And which bike was I faster on between these two on this day? Well, if you look here, pretty much exactly the same. So basically, with a few mods, you can push one bike one way or push one bike the other and have a great platform and have no buyer's remorse. Till next time.